Well, I understand India no longer is going to be buying oil from Russia. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's right or not, but that's a good step. We'll see.
The escalating trade dispute between the US and China has evolved into a deeply entrenched geopolitical conflict, moving far beyond traditional commercial disagreements. At its heart, the core issue is China's unwavering commitment to purchasing oil from both Iran and Russia. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. This is not simply a matter of commerce, it represents a fundamental and deeply entrenched clash between US foreign policy objectives, which seek to enforce a unipolar global order through economic sanctions, and China's strategic interests in ensuring its own energy security and protecting its national sovereignty. The two nations are not merely negotiating trade terms, they are engaging in a high-stakes struggle for global influence, with the flow of oil serving as the central battlefield. The outcome of this standoff will have profound implications for the future of international relations, potentially reshaping the global order for decades to come. China's unwavering position: sovereignty over sanctions. China's stance on continuing to buy oil from Iran and Russia is resolute and considered a matter of fundamental principle. The Foreign Ministry's declarative statement that China will always ensure its energy supply in ways that serve our national interests is a direct and unambiguous declaration of its commitment to energy sovereignty. This principle, a cornerstone of Beijing's foreign policy, dictates that a nation's energy supply and policy decisions are its own, to be made free from the pressure or coercion of other countries. Beijing perceives the U.S. demand to halt these purchases as a direct and unacceptable infringement on this fundamental right. Viewing it as a form of coercion and pressure, it is unequivocally determined to resist at all costs. The profound philosophical divide is even recognized by U.S. officials. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has acknowledged that the Chinese take their sovereignty very seriously, underscoring the deep ideological schism that makes a simple resolution virtually impossible. Beijing's rationale is a sophisticated blend of pragmatic economic necessity and strategic geopolitical maneuvering. Economically, Russian and Iranian oil provide a significant and heavily discounted energy source, which serves as a crucial strategic lifeline for China's massive and energy-hungry industrial economy. These fire sale prices offer a crucial competitive advantage in the global market, lowering input costs for its vast manufacturing sector and boosting its economic competitiveness. According to detailed data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, China imports over 1 million barrels per day from Iran alone, an astonishing volume that constitutes 80% to 90% of Iran's total oil exports. The lengths to which China will go to secure this supply are evident in the use of a dark fleet of ships to evade U.S. sanctions, a clandestine strategy exposed by a CBS News investigation. These vessels, often old and operating under flags of convenience, obscure their identity and routes to move sanctioned crude, a practice that has grown significantly since the imposition of U.S. sanctions. Similarly, Chinese imports of Russian oil have surged dramatically since the onset of the war in Ukraine. Data from the KSE Institute reveals a substantial 20% increase in Russian oil imports in April alone, reaching more than 1.3 million barrels per day. This economic reliance is deeply ingrained and difficult for China to abandon without significant internal disruption and a loss of economic leverage. Geopolitically, these oil purchases are not merely transactions. They are a cornerstone of China's strategic alliance and burgeoning partnership with Russia. In a world where the U.S. seeks to project its unipolar influence, the burgeoning Sino-Russian partnership serves as a vital and intentional counterbalance. By continuing to buy Russian oil, China is signaling its unwavering support for Vladimir Putin's administration, thereby strengthening a relationship that is fundamentally designed to challenge the US-led global order. This shared vision of a more multipolar world, one not dominated by a single superpower, is a key and powerful driver of Beijing's foreign policy. Experts like Danny Russell of the Asia Society Policy Institute suggest that Beijing, being keenly aware of President Trump's desire for a headline-grabbing deal, to show a victory for his administration, believes it holds the upper hand in these negotiations. China likely calculates that the U.S. will not risk completely derailing a broader and more comprehensive trade agreement over this single, though important, issue. This makes its refusal to bend on oil a strategic bargaining chip rather than a definitive deal breaker, a calculated and high-stakes risk it is willing to take. This strategic calculus is a reflection of a long-term plan to reshape the global power structure. The U.S. strategy and global repercussions. The U.S. strategy is clear and unapologetic: to use its substantial economic leverage to exert pressure and, ultimately, to deprive both Russia and Iran of the critical military and financial funding they need to continue their destabilizing activities. For Russia, this funding directly supports its ongoing and costly war in Ukraine. For Iran, it underwrites its support for militant proxies and other groups across the Middle East, such as Hezbollah and the Houthis. This campaign of economic pressure extends far beyond China to other key players in the global energy market. India, for example, has also become a major purchaser of discounted Russian oil. In response to India's continued purchases, President Trump has threatened to impose a punitive 25% tariff on Indian goods, along with an additional import tax, a move designed to force compliance. India's foreign ministry, in a defiant stance remarkably similar to China's, has declared its long-standing relationship with Russia to be steady and time-tested, indicating its reluctance to bend to U.S. pressure. This resistance highlights the broader challenge to U.S. sanctioning power. Within the U.S., the debate over these policies is intense and highly polarized. Stephen Miller, a White House Deputy Chief of Staff, has been a particularly vocal and aggressive proponent of cracking down on countries that he believes are financing this war. Speaking on Fox News, he pointed out that India is basically tied with China in purchasing Russian oil, highlighting what he views as a global and systemic failure to cut off Moscow's financial lifelines. Senator Lindsey Graham is pushing for even more drastic and far-reaching measures. His proposed bill, the Sanctioning Russia Act of 2025, would authorize the president to impose tariffs as high as 500% on any country that, knowingly, buys oil or other energy products from Russia. This demonstrates the level of frustration and the willingness to use extreme economic measures to achieve U.S. foreign policy goals. The proposed legislation, which enjoys broad bipartisan support, is a clear signal that the U.S. Congress is willing to enforce its will through the threat of crippling economic penalties. The effectiveness of such sanctions is a subject of intense debate, with some experts arguing that they simply force the creation of alternative, non-Western aligned trading systems, further fragmenting the global economy. Ultimately, the trade negotiations between the US and China have spiraled into a high-stakes geopolitical game. The issue of oil purchases from Iran and Russia is not an isolated problem but a telling microcosm of a much larger and more profound struggle for global influence. The US is using its overwhelming economic might as a tool to unilaterally enforce a specific foreign policy agenda, one that seeks to isolate and weaken its rivals. In response, China and other nations like India are pushing back fiercely, asserting their right to secure their own national interests without being subjected to external coercion or pressure. The outcome of this escalating standoff will not only reshape the future of the world's two largest economies but will also set a crucial and lasting precedent for how international relations are conducted in the 21st century. It will determine whether a single nation can enforce its will through economic sanctions or if a new, more multipolar order, where nations can pursue their own interests, will prevail. This struggle for dominance in the global economic and political spheres is defining a new era of great power competition.